So thank you, Lev, for agreeing to do this interview today. Um, yeah, we start with a story. It's a short story, maybe 5 minutes or so. Something specific, with some details to it. Um, and we're looking for something that is an experience you had in your life, in your work, that involved a community or a network. Um, in some way that was really satisfying, energizing, peak experience, maybe even, or just valuable, that really kind of brought you to life. And
Mm.
do you want to sit for a minute to just sort of see what story comes to mind, or if you just had an immediate hit and you want to go?
Well, I mean, I had a couple different places that I went, but you wanted me to just stay with one all the
Yeah,
way.
pick one and tell us a short story of something specific
Well,
context that really.
um, well, I'll just sell. Maybe I'll ask you. One, they're both conferences that were live in person. One was in Berkeley, the Tikkun conference in like 2006 or something, and then one was the World Social Forum in 2004 in India, Mumbai. So,
Well, I was
uh,
born in Berkeley, and
all
we're
right,
both Jewish, so maybe we go with Tikkun.
all right. Why don't we do that? Yeah. So, that one, they're connected. I think in some way, I probably wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the World Social Forum, in a sense, or not just that, but that trip that I went on. Um, so yeah, the Tikkun conference, I was, it was there was a sense of adventure with it and synchronicity. I was living with a girlfriend from the the trip that I went to the World Social Forum with. So there's a connection down in LA, and I wasn't living with her, but I was living near her. That's why I was down there. And then I was staying at this little permaculture farm, and this guy, well, I was planning to go up. I heard about it. I wanted to go. And then it turned out this guy who I was living with was going. And I was like, oh, great. And then turns out his girlfriend was on this trip that I had gone on years before, a Jewish, like, what's it called? Young Judea year course, gap year program. She was on the same. So, and I hadn't seen her for years. So that was interesting. So we all drove up together, and I was going to go by myself, like I said. So it turned out, because I went with these people, they had a house, and I got to sleep on a couch, in someone's house, and all the people were, nice. And I don't remember any of them too much, but there was just a feeling of, wow, I'm in Berkeley. Like, I never got to do this, and they were nice people. And then we would walk through the, you know, you know, Berkeley neighborhood, and I think it was at the, UCal Berkeley.
Right?
And I'll just cut two very powerful moments. One is, uh, I was actually, um, I wasn't in, there was a talk. Van Jones was speaking in the main room, and I didn't know who he was. And how many, 500, 1,000 people. And I walk in the middle of the talk, and the first thing I heard him say is, "Let my people go." And it was just like electricity, like what? Like, who is this guy? Like, what is going on? And then he's talking about the prison industrial complex,
Mhm.
in front of Jews who, to hear that metaphor, obviously that's why he was using language, using story in such a powerful, effective, connected way. And it worked on me. And then after, he came out and he was giving everyone like, what I call dap, like shit, like slapping hand, really good, strong, like hugs and handshakes. So, he gave me one of those. That was nice. And then another event, like it was a 4-day event. And so then I ended up connecting with the youth group, the youth track. There was a youth track. And, I don't know how old I was, in like my mid 20s. And it was really like this group of 20 people. And there was something very purposeful about the conversation. And we broke into subgroups, and we were, there was like this really exciting energy to it. Um, and then I ended up, there was like 4 different groups, and then, you know, we each presented something, and then I ended up being the one that gave the like a 1-minute talk to the whole room, that the big room that Van Jones was in. And we all like entered in as the youth people, and they were like, people were drumming. And so that was really exciting to be like, just, I didn't feel like, oh, I want to do it, it was just like, oh, Lev should do it. And I was like, wow. So then I got to speak in front of a big room full of people. It's not something I've done too much in my life, a few times. And now that I'm thinking about it, another really powerful experience there was meeting um what is his name? Oh my god. This uh, Matthew Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I didn't know who he was.
Gasland, right?
No, Matthew Fox, the priest, the spiritual.
No. Who am I thinking of?
Yeah, Gasland is Matthew. He's the documentarian.
Right.
No, Matthew Fox is an older man who's really an authority on Christian mysticism. Um, yeah, just a really amazing, inspiring person. And I got to share a couple words with him too. Like, I was kind of like, hey, I'm on this journey. What do I do? And he was like, keep going. That's it. You know. So yeah, those are three moments. And there was now that I'm thinking about it, there was another one that was another very powerful workshop that I went to, of a presentation. I don't know if it was these Black mother or family, and they were maybe from LA or maybe Oakland, who, their son was killed in gang violence. And like it was on forgiveness, and I was just like blown away by it.
Mm.
They're talking about I hadn't remembered that. uh, so yeah, I think that's at
Yeah.
least 5 minutes, right?
That was, what year did you say that was?
I think it was 2005.
Oh, okay.
The summer of 2005.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So the next part of the interview is to think about that story and, describe what were some of the elements that contributed to that experience being so valuable and satisfying. It might be, some of the structure of it, or resources, or values that were present, patterns. Just what do you think were some of the factors that were? I think you've named some, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think I was anticipating that question when I just told the story. So I even started by saying adventure and synchronicity, right?
right.
So those were present right from the start.
Yep, yep.
And friendship, relationships with people who are, it's kind of like why I like hitchhiking, or I used to do it, because it's like that in between space where people are willing to be human and trusting, um, and not scared of each other, right? Uh, so yeah, that element was present, of connecting with new people, and then there was some real, just the fact that the collection of people who were there was quite compelling. The luminaries, uh, and that was new for me at the time. It was a newer, I was just maybe in the last couple that yeah, I've been kind of starting to be exposed to those kinds of ideas, the last, like, for the last 2 years before that, or so. And so it was like, whoa, here I am.
Hmm.
uh yeah, so the newness, the novelty of it, um and then, yeah, being able to participate,
Right, right, yeah,
right, to be able to speak from the front of the room, to be able to engage with the and meet the luminary, the larger than life kind of people. I have a In the last 15 years, I've realized that since then, I have a way of putting people on a pedestal, that I've become more conscious of that. So, but at the time it was like, wow, um, so then having the opportunity to experience, well, they're just people too. We're all people, that are human, our collective humanity.
right,
Um,
right. Like Matthew Fox saying, "Yeah, keep going.
yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
got it. You're on your way."
Yeah, yeah. I was like, what should I do?
He
Yeah,
knew better than to give you advice.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, so now I want you to imagine that it's November this year, and you've just spent a few weeks engaging with a new community or network that has powerfully supported you in your life and work. Um, and you're excited to be connected and a part of that. So you want to, so this is now what, right? You participated in the next edition, now what? And it's really gone well in whatever ways, you want to invent for yourself as you imagine that. I'm getting a little background noise from outside here. Let me just close the windows. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So it's November, and you've had this experience with Now What, and from that point in time, I want you to look back on this sort of dream version of what might have happened for you and describe it. Right? So put yourself in that time, and in the past tense, say, we did this, I met these people, this happened with the work I was doing. Um, and what did it feel like? Who was there? What did you give or receive? What surprised you? All that. So let's just take a minute to let you sit with that and let the vision kind of cook and see what you come up with. I know, without knowing much about Now What, it maybe is an odd thing to endeavor to do, but
Yeah.
I'll just change the timer here. Whole new interface. All right. So what happened?
Well, for this particular year, um, yeah, I think there was just a filling in the lines, so to speak, of the goals that I'm creating right now around building these two elements of the alliance in the Northeast, uh, which is this walk for a viable future, and the climate leadership cohort journey. And it's a year-long experience.
Yeah. So how was the walk, and how did it integrate with Now What?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, so people somehow, right? We created a partnership with that, and so everyone in, and so in a sense, because Now What's a global event, right? So the walk had a global element to it. I mean, it maybe was rooted here in the Northeast in some ways, and that was our focus. But bringing it into the Now What community, it became global, and so people were having meaningful experiences with it that was feeding back to me. Yeah, like I said, right now it's like a coloring book, these ideas that I have.
Wait a minute.
um
Are we still in November, or are we back in June?
no, yes, you're right. In November, that's what I'm saying is it's alive and has been colored in now in November,
So back in
you know.
June, it was a coloring book.
Yes, back in
Now
June.
it's colored in. By the way, for people who may not know, this walk was on Indigenous Peoples Day, right, which is
Yes.
October 19th,
12th.
October 12th.
October 12th.
Was on October 12th.
Monday. It was on a Monday, October 12th, and then there were some things leading up to it over the weekend. Some, maybe we had not maybe we had a panel
Mhm.
discussion, on Saturday, and there were local events Friday night and Saturday night, and workshops on Sunday. You know, that were all connected to this theme of walking for a viable future, loosely, and more specifically connected to this theme of place-based, decentralized, synchronized ceremony, uh, communal ceremony, to honor place. You know, that's a yes. What is the yes? There's demonstrations, there's no, there's fuck the system, and then there's yes. So like the Zapatistas say, many no, one no, many yeses. So it's a celebration of the many yeses. The one no, in a sense, is Columbus Day, right? And it's the indigenous people is the inverse of that. So that happened, and because of the partnerships, it wasn't a tremendous amount of work, on my end, that I don't really have the at this time, or in over the summer.
We're getting
Over
some
the summer.
emphasis on it not being too much work.
Say it again.
Did you hear my timer just kind of randomly went off there? As you said, it wasn't too much work. It was,
Nice.
oh.
Yes, amen. Yeah, exactly. Like over the summer and early fall, I didn't have the management bandwidth to make it a, organizationally intensive, event. So it was decentralized, and there were certain things like we had this Facebook group or whatever, something like that, where people could tell their stories, and um, we had some guiding principles or ideas of what you could do, and then people went to town, and it really caught something in the imagination, and it so and then I had this feedback loop through that experience of feeling nourished, that the alliance is real, you know and then from that, people, you know having a listening ear during what now to what the alliance is standing for, and then wanting to participate in the cohorts that the circle events that we had throughout what now, and and then wanting more, and having there be energy and interest for, having, I think it would be great to have two cohorts in 2021 operating. So 24 people, two groups of 12 that are moving forward for the year of 2021. Yeah, and a diverse group of partners, and then people who aren't necessarily participating in that, or they are, but feeling excited about connecting other, their world with the alliance. So that all happened. Yeah, cool.
What's it feel like?
Yeah, it feels, very affirming. uh it's funny that I use the word, the thought that came to mind is actually vindicated,
Hmm.
actually, with my like actually communicating to my wife that, like, look, this is real. Like, there's real people who want to do this. And she's been very supportive at
Mhm.
times, and then she just also has moments of, like, Lev, like, these are just all these ideas you have, and, like, what is this? And I still don't get it. Is I'm
Now she
here.
gets it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's grounded, and it's powerful, and it's still just the beginning, but it's the beginning of something really substantial. Uh, yeah, so that's how it feels, and
Did anything surprise you?
um, well, I think it was just surprising that how well received it was. Because that's been I think my fear for a long time, of just, and then I've been getting over along, time and time again, just being a shy person, and, you know, uh, having this desire to be out and engaged, and enjoying my work that I do with people one on one in small groups, and, just the familiar, the yeah, meeting new people, and having it be comfortable and familiar, in addition to it being expansive and new. Yeah.
All right. So the last bit of this is looking back. We're still in November, and you're looking back to earlier in the year when you weren't really sure what you were going to do. You had this interview with me back in June, and then something along the way led you to decide, yeah, let's do this. To say yes to the invitation to really participate fully and bring this vision to life. So what was it in the invitation that led you to say yes?
Um,
You might need to
well,
sit
I
with
think.
that. I don't know.
What'd you say?
You want to sit with that one too? Sort of
No.
remember back to those days?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think it comes back to those words, actually, of adventure and synchronicity,
Mhm.
um, and a sense of readiness,
Mhm.
because I actually have received this invitation from you, not to do this interview, but to the What Now community, at least twice. And I've, like, maybe been involved peripherally, but, I had my son, and I don't know what was before that, and for whatever reason I wasn't ready. to participate. I wasn't set up to have the bandwidth to say, to plug in this, in a way that was actually collaborative and not, and I think I sensed that I didn't really want to engage just as someone who's going to go to someone else's workshops. And where 15 years ago, right, that was awesome. I don't have the bandwidth to just be a adventurer
Right.
anymore in my life. So I have to be purposeful with my time and energy. And so, yeah, so I think I sensed that earlier, that I wasn't quite in a place. And then I didn't want to just be in participant in other people's workshops. I mean, maybe I will if I'm doing my thing as well. So I think that readiness piece is like, there's synchronicity and readiness is more than, and the adventure of it for sure to some extent. But I think, those two pieces, because I think there's been synchronicity present in the way that this conversation came into being, of gift economy, and actually being tuned in to the spring, what to the point where I heard, I received your video about gift economy, and so that was relevant to me and what I'm creating. So that's why I reached out. And so
Right.
so there was that synchronicity piece to it, and shared values, shared synergy, coherence. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, that completes the interview portion of our time, unless there's more you want to add. But I'm kind of itching to step out of that space and just kind of process it a little bit.
Cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like so excited right now about this idea. It's just, I mean, even as we were starting, I mentioned, the election is in November, and I've just been wrestling with it. Like, how can it not be about the election if that's happening during Now What? But it just, I don't know. There was something that wasn't. It wasn't like that really sort of click locked into place feeling about it, right? It was more like, well, we have to do this, but how, and then what do we do? And there were some ideas. I had some thoughts, but this, as the centerpiece instead, Indigenous Peoples Day. And exactly what you described, the place-based, decentralized, communal ceremony that's about a collective yes, one no and many yeses. Fuck yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it. And I think, so it means to me that Now What would start earlier than it might have otherwise, and end earlier, would end before the elections then. And so last time, Earth Day became this centering kind of.
When is Earth Day?
Earth Day was in April.
No, I know. Oh, yes.
April
I thought you
20th.
meant last fall. I
In
didn't
the
know.
last edition, no, in this last just complete edition of Now What?
No, I
Earth
remember.
Day happened to fall in like the fourth week or the fifth week. It was right in the middle, sort of just past the midpoint. I think it was in the middle of the fourth week of the sixth, or maybe it was the middle of the fifth week. Anyway, we got this idea to do an Earth Day celebration, and it became this whole collaborative adventure, and it was kind of like a festival. It ran for 48 hours because we realized that that's actually how long a calendar day lasts, right?
You told me about it when we talked last.
Right. So, and it worked so well. We're thinking, well, maybe this is a regular part of each Now What gathering, is that we do something like that. And I'm thinking it's around the election, but no, this makes so much more sense, and it's so well aligned.
Yeah, cool.
And so I just I'm
awesome.
really jazzed to imagine this. Did I tell you about Mark Thibault and the Indigenous networks he's been working with?
Well, I thought he was going to be on our call.
He was, right.
Yeah. No, yeah. So you did. You told me. I was looking forward to meeting him. So
He
we could,
wants to support indigenous peoples in creating engagement spaces that are using some of the processes and things that we're prototyping in Now. So we'd have them wired in, plus we have local connections through you and people like Jenny, who was going to be here today, and um, uh,
yeah,
Elise Maria also has worked with Nolambika, and
yeah,
I don't know, I can just feel it, and this idea of it happening around the world and it not being a lot of work.
yeah.
Um,
It's crazy because, I was talking to Jennifer Brody about this like probably a year ago.
right?
Must have been a year ago because it was well, no, it was last summer, almost a year ago because it was before my son was born. And I was in the Marketplace Cafe where you met with her once, I remember. And it was just the two of us, and we were talking about the alliance and stuff, and I was telling her about the walk. And this was like a few weeks before um, it just kind of like became an idea, and I was just like, I can't remember exactly how it became an idea, but I just had shared it with a few people, and I was like, oh my God, I need to tell Jennifer about this. And she was just like, let's make it global. It's like the election. And I was like, all right, yeah, maybe if you want to like organize this whole thing, like I'm just like, it's just me here. So it's exciting. So it's like, here it is. It's going to be global
Yeah.
on some level. Yeah.
Well, and I'm thinking about the way that the Black Lives Matters protests, Black Lives Matter protests have gone global as well. These issues are
Yeah.
not something just because we have Columbus Day here doesn't mean that the issues around that aren't relevant
Yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, that's like the day that symbolizes like global imperialism. So it's like,
And
yeah,
the
it's like,
genocide of indigenous people. I mean, I guess so. My giant question with all of this still, and we have plenty of time to think about it, but and talk to other people, obviously, is what else is already being planned for that day, and how does this support that and let indigenous people be in the lead, and on the front lines of all this, rather than you know,
yeah,
the last thing we want is to colonize indigenous people's day.
yeah,
A couple of Jewish guys who are inspired by the concept.
yeah, yeah. And that was also kind of a, this, just like a happenstance thing because I was planning to do it on the 10th because I was looking at the calendar and I was just like, oh, that's pretty cool. 10/10/2020. And then I shared it with some people, and this funny, yeah, this young Jewish woman said, she looked up at the calendar, she was like, you can't do that, that's Simchas Torah or something. It's like, and I was like, oh my God, like we're gonna do it on that day. She was like, just do it on Monday, that's better. And I was like, it was, and then I looked at it and I was like, wow, like that's Indigenous Peoples Day, that's powerful. So it was a kind, it's like a good mistake, you know, and yeah, I think it's just about getting behind it and just really, um, there's a mentor of mine who has his company or his, sound healing practice is called Ancient Futures, I think.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, Thomas Workman. He's wonderful. I think it's called that, Ancient Futures.
I think some of his music might have made it onto a Now What playlist.
Yeah, that I wouldn't be surprised. He's quite.
Ancient Future. I wonder if Ken Homer is he the one who Ancient Future musical ensemble.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think Ken Homer may have turned me on.
Yeah, he's just Anyway, the reason I just thought of him was because of that. There's the ancient, the indigenous roots of of wisdom, of our world, and then the future. We're talking about the future
Look at this.
altogether.
Look at this. Here's the website. One band, many flavors.
Oh wow! Here we go. I can't. I just want to see. I can't. I have my
Can't see it? Here, I'll zoom in.
here. Yeah, no. I just need to open this.
Oh,
Where's it? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
see, it's the one no, many yeses, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. Ancient to future. Yeah, it's not ancient futures. It's ancient to future. It's kind
Ancient
of
to
cool.
future, or this is dash. Is it the same thing?
I'm not sure. Yeah, but anyway, just the concept of it is, you know, that we, and I'm in this course right now with someone that I'm wanting to connect more with, and you probably would as well, named Gibran Rivera. He's a Puerto Rican man in Boston, and he does a lot of facilitation in social movement space.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and he ran for city council years ago. I don't think he won, but he's really electrifying. Um, and I'm in a class right now with him called "What Should White People Do?"
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful. So yeah, last night he was invoking. He was talking about myth, the power of myth, and how modernity has, you know, uh, made it impotent, or
Right.
has attempted to, and has said that,
Just stories. It's
yeah,
not true.
just the arrogance and the hubris of, in the last 200 to 500 years, we've actually learned everything that we need to know. We don't need to know anything from before that anymore. And so,
And that it's all true. There's no myth involved in the idea of progress, for example,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or,
yeah,
or GDP,
yeah,
the economy. There's a myth for you.
yeah,
Money,
exactly.
another one.
Exactly. So, so right there, it's like, I think it's really about being intentional, and he was also saying, as white people, it's like there's all these archetypes of like the white people who want to be helpful to, the Black Lives Matter movement. There's like all these archetypes, but he's like, just basically keep moving, do your best, try again, or make mistakes and keep. I don't know. He said, like, yeah, do your best, make mistakes, and keep moving. Be real though. So, like we have enough time to, you know, have some conversations, enough to be mindful and to listen about that core message of solidarity with our ancestors, and in order to build a viable future, or it's not to build, to walk into a viable future. And that's the whole thing, is it's not about solutions, it's about pathways
Mm-hmm.
into the future. That's what I've been thinking about for
Mm-hmm.
a while. That's why it's a walk. And when you think about the ancient wisdom in Judaism, right, it's the halakha, literally. That's the walk. That's the law. The natural law is a walk. That's what that word means, right? Halakha.
Halacha means what?
I mean, yeah, holech, halakha is the walk. Which, when I realized that, I was like, all right, that's pretty cool.
And that's
And
the word that's used to describe people that are really following the full set of Orthodox practices, right? It's
well, it's not describing the people; it's describing the law.
what they do. Yeah.
Halacha, like when I grew up going to Jewish day school,
Right.
there's halacha and there's Torah. Torah is the 5 books,
Right.
right? Halacha is the rabbis saying, this is how you do it. This is how you walk the talk. This is the law, the natural law. And right there, it's like, well, that's the Tao, or that's the red road, you know, or in Christianity, I don't know what the what the phrase is, but basically it's about walking together. And then the viable, the reason I have that word is because it's like a seed. A seed needs to, needs to work. It can't be dead.
It's a lot.
It's alive. It boom. It's viable. And then it comes from, yeah, a via in Latin is the walk. It's the path too. So it's the living path. So yeah.
Yeah, so
So
the alliance, that was another interesting piece in your vision, is that you've got these two cohorts of 12 people that are organizing for 2021, and this is kind of more of your core business, for lack of a better word. And that got energized. And as I was listening to that, I'm thinking, that's not a big number of people. That sounds completely doable, as an intention. And how do we design the next edition of Now What so that not only you find your 24 people, but whatever it is that allows that to happen for you supports similar things for other people's work, whether it's that they're finding the right people, or they're, getting connected in certain ways, or maybe it's just they're looking for a partner, maybe it's funding, I don't know, but there's something about the gift economy, you know being energized beyond the way we're working with this pool of money that we gather. That to me is probably far more powerful than the money, at least for now, although who knows. And I just had this thought, well, yeah, of course we should be able to do that, or at least help move that forward significantly, right?
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and then I was thinking about how, because it'll be a pilot, really. I mean, I've definitely thought it through. I've done other iterations
Right.
of this curriculum, but it's definitely a pilot as a year-long cohort.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
So
exactly what I think some of the other interviews made it really clear too, that it's a space where we can help things like that launch. The whole point of Now What is it pops up twice a year so that it isn't taking up people's bandwidth all the time. It's
yeah,
service to these ongoing bodies of work rather than, another thing to pull your attention towards if you
yeah,
choose, right?
yeah. Well, then towards that end, and why I said it was a pilot, is perhaps it could be designed in a way that gives some space to the Now What seasons, you know,
Yeah.
in the spring and the fall, that's happening. And we weave the cohorts into
Maybe
that.
the cohorts, if the cohort forms in the fall, two cohorts, that in the spring there's some work they're doing on behalf of the spring edition of Now What. Or we have to stop using fall and spring because that's northern centric as terms. So
Yeah.
second and second quarter and fourth quarter don't really have a ring to them. So I'm not sure what the right
Yeah.
word
Art.
is for the months. Anyway, but yeah, that maybe there's some because that's another thing I think that we're experiencing in Now What is that when you have work to do together, like we did with Sonic Spring for Earth Day, it just lifts everyone. It creates a way to feel like you're engaged in your service, and you build relationships in that way, and you learn in that way much more than you know than not having a thing you're doing as a group, right? So if your cohort has this little project, some kind of offering back to Now What for the next edition.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see, just as we design the flow of the curriculum, there could be kind of like not a presentation, it would be interactive, but some kind of a,
Well, you talked about tracks in the Tikkun conference, right? That you were on the youth track.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
We
there could be
had engagement streams in the last edition, and I think that's kind of what's evolving, is that there's something like a track, except when we've got 5 weeks or 6 weeks to do it, it's a little more like a journey, like we're doing Coming Down to Earth. Things can happen. There can be movement. It's not, anyway. So, and it can. I think we're still just kind of beginning to explore how those come into being in the most generative ways. We're on to something with it.
Cool.
The other
Cool.
thing you mentioned that I picked up on was the small group part of your story, right? That you had your group of two or three other people that you drove up with and hung out with, and you went through the conference with that very personal little group as a kind of an anchor.
Yeah.
We talked about doing that in the last edition of Now What, and it didn't quite happen. In this Coming Down to Earth Summit, we've got over 300 people saying they want to form small groups. So I think there's a process pattern there that feels really juicy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like buddies and small groups are important because
Heck,
there's
even one,
another, what?
even if it's one person, it's good. But
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about, I was at a work that reconnects intensive a few years ago, and it was like 5 or 6 days, like living together, and we had groups of 3 or 4 or 5, that we would meet with every day at the same time, and it was really
wow,
grounding.
yeah, wow.
For an
That's how
hour.
you really do that work. Yeah, it takes some time to really go through that spiral in a deep way.
Yeah, that was an intensive. It was really special.
Maybe that's a thing, to a way to structure a track, including
The
using
spiral,
some of those practices. Yeah, using the spiral.
for sure.
Well, yeah. So we're just in the beginning of this appreciative inquiry process. I think it's going to kind of gel and take off, and we're going to do a bunch more interviews. Um, and then move into kind of a collective dreaming phase. So in each of these interviews, we're getting some individual dreaming happening, but then we want to look at it together, and build on that in some kind of a collective process. Then we move into design. So even as we're doing this, we're sort of design pieces are just kind of dropping out. Yes, we know we want to have small groups again. We want to, Indigenous Peoples Day and the March. Different things are already kind of falling out, but there's still the sense that we don't have to design it all now, and we want to make sure we're inclusive in how that happens. Um, so even with what happens on Indigenous Peoples Day, my sense is that assuming we do run with this, and I feel pretty strongly that we're going to in some form, or walk with it, um, there's we have time to have that unfold and to keep noting the ideas and the specific things that feel right, but also leaving it open to what collectively shows up. So somewhere by August, it's starting to really take form. I would guess is the time frame for it, and we have between now and then to move through this discovery and dream phase into the hardcore kind of design and implementation work in August and September. That's my rough sense of it.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. A few minutes ago, I was just thinking, I remembered, I think in our first conversation when you came to visit me with your dog, um, I think we started to talk about these kinds of ideas of decentralized, synchronized events and convergences. So, so
I
it's
don't
exciting.
remember, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, I remember. I do. I remember that's what you were. I mean, seems like that's what you've been talking about for a long time. So it's cool. Now it's that readiness piece.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
these years.
Feeling it too. Feeling it too.
Yeah.
Uh, Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Then I'm going to stop the recording here.
Cool.
Do you have a parting thought you want to share with anyone who's watching?
Um,
No pressure.
um, no, I just say thank you for who you are and what you do to everyone that's here, each and every one of you.
Yes, thank you indeed.